Ajnanatirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha yantah pravesha mama vachamimam prashuttam sanjeevayatya kila shakti dharasvadhamnam anyamscha hasta charana shravana tvagadim pranannamo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. Thank you all so much. So we are continuing our exploration through the 9 islands of the heart. And we are at the second last one, which is called Sakyam, or divine friendship. And in exploring this beautiful island, we are acquiring different values that are provided to us by the sages. Welcome to the Heartspace, Narayani Devi. We are exploring the different values that are instilled in these various islands, that hopefully we can acquire those qualities and apply it in our own personal relationships with others. So in this friendship, I wanted to tell you some stories from the Ramayana. It is stories of deep spiritual friendships, because our common understanding of friendship means that there should be no doubt, there should be no fight, no quarrel. Just we always think of all these rosy things. But you'd be surprised to know that even in spiritual friendships, you need to have a little bit of a quarrel. It's okay to have some doubts, because that's what really gets us to test the quality of our friendships. Because friendship is based, we'll know in the story of Ram in the Ramayana, there are some beautiful stories of friendship between Ram and the monkey king Sugriva and Hanuman. So we'll share one of the stories, and within the stories, there are so many beautiful components of how these friendships have these beautiful ups and downs, but it always survives all trials and tribulations, because the foundation of the friendships are truly spiritual. So this is a story from the Ramayana, this great epic that I recommend those of you who have time to read it. This is the story of Lord Ram. Ram is known as the king who is the embodiment of morality and ethics. What is the right thing to do? What is the righteous thing to do? So some of you may know, Ram was exiled in the forest, to the forest. So many English teachers on the line, so I have to be careful how I speak properly. And so he was exiled to the forest. Who knows for how many years? How many of you have read the Ramayana? Any of you?
14 years. Prabhu.
14 years, yes. Sandra, look at you. You have read your Ramayana. So 14 years he was exiled. When he was living in exile, along with him, he took his younger brother Lakshman and his consort, his wife Sita Devi. And it's not that he wanted to take them. It's actually Sita Devi fought real hard to make sure that she was never separated from him. And his younger brother Lakshman, he said, my dear brother, if you go to the forest and you'll be gone for 14 years, the minute you walk out of this palace kingdom, I will simply die. My life will be gone. So there is no point for me to live. So you have to take me with you. So he pleaded and he begged his older brother, and his older brother said, okay. So Ram had 4 brothers, Ram, Lakshman, Bharata, and Shatrughna, 4 brothers, separate mothers. So when Ram had gone to the forest, he had gone to, first place he went to in the forest is a place called Chitrakut. Chitrakut is a unique place in the mountains where the sages used to live, and they would do many years of penances and austerities in the caves. And they would do this incredible fire ceremonies. It is a duty of a sage that they do fire ceremonies. Some of you have seen me do fire ceremonies in Europe. We just did a big, beautiful fire ceremony here in Atlanta to pray to Lord Narasimhadev. So in these fire ceremonies, we invite different energies to permeate the whole entire universe. And we also bring these energies to bring it into the lives of each and every participant. So the sages used to do these fire ceremonies every day, morning, evening, and at noon. And it was a big part of their ceremony. That's what sages do. They always pray for the whole world. You know, we chant this verse, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Who has remembered that verse? We sing that song, right? Everyone remembers? And even in our breath work we use that chant as our ultimate final chant. So the sages were doing these fire ceremonies. And when they saw Ram, Lakshman, and Sita enter into that zone of Chitrakud area, the sages were completely shocked. How are these princely looking people? They look so fragile, they look so delicate, they look so tender. How are they walking in this forest? And they were walking barefoot, because that was one of the conditions. So they were walking barefoot, and the sages looking at them, they approached them. And these 2 prince and the princess, they appealed to the sages, can we please stay here for a little bit? And please give us some shelter. And the sages were very happy. He says, yes, you can definitely stay here, but we just want to let you know that, you know, in this mountainous area where we are doing our sadhana, our tapasya, our austerities, there is this evil demon named Khara, Khara, Khara is the name. And this demon is the brother of Ravana, who is another evil king. So this demon, what he does is, because they thrive on chaos. They love when things are in disarray. So what he does is he comes and he pees on the fire ceremonies. And that is considered to be very inauspicious. And he also poops on the fire ceremonies. So he pees and poops and he makes a mess. So the sages were very disturbed by this. And because they were disturbed and the place remained very dirty and and it became contaminated. So they said, "Oh, my dear prince, we want to leave this place and we're going to go to another place where we're not disturbed by these evil personalities." So then they left, but Ram, Lakshman, and Sita, they did not want to leave that place. And the reason for that is that Ram was extremely nostalgic because his younger brother, Bharata, who was anointed the king of Ayodhya, that he was banished from for 14 years. His younger brother was so deeply in love with his older brother, such deep spiritual love and friendship, that when they were leaving, he cried tears of such deep love for his brother that he bathed his brother in his tears of spiritual love and friendship. And he kept thinking about Bharata. And Bharata, even though he was anointed as the king, he never lived and sat on the same throne where the king was supposed to sit. He put the shoes of his brother on the throne, and he lived on the outskirts of the city in a little cottage, just like his brother in the forest were living. He lived in a little cottage, and he used the different saps of the trees to grow his hair, matted hair. I don't know how in America they make dreads, but in those days, they just use this kind of sap from the tree and your hair becomes dread. It's clean. So Bharata was living with dreads in the outskirts of the city, and he was ruling the kingdom where his brother's shoes was sitting on the throne. So there's deep spiritual love between these two brothers. So Ram was thinking about his brother, and he could not go any further away. So he decided to spend a little longer in this place called Chitrakoot. By the way, one of these years when we go to India on this pilgrimage, we'll go to this place called Chitrakoot. There are still some remnants still there. So from Chitrakoot, they kept wandering into the forest, and they came to another peak of the Himalayan mountains. That place is called Kiskinda. And Kiskinda is a place where all the monkey kings, this great king empire, was located. And also there is many, many cottages and caves of different sages. So when Ram, Lakshman, and Sita, when they entered into Kiskinda, there was a great monkey king. His name was Sugriva. And the Sugriva was a king that was always very, very scared and paranoid of anybody entering into his territory. So when Ram, Lakshman, and Sita were entering into the territory, being fearful of their presence, he had an assistant, and his name was Hanuman, a minister in his kingdom. So Hanuman was sent to go and find out who this, can you hear all the noise? I'm living in an apartment, and the people upstairs, they seem like they're running around and having a big party. Okay, I was just making sure you can't hear. So Hanuman was sent to go and find out who these people are. So Hanuman, there's another story of how he recognized, Ram recognized Hanuman and Hanuman recognized Ram, but I won't get into that side of the story. So when Hanuman goes and sees these two princes, he notices that they seem to be in the mode of goodness and they're not harmful. And so he came and he approached these two brothers and the prince, and he introduced himself. And Ram and Lakshman explained to Hanuman that they have come in search of Sugriva, because Sugriva was the monkey king that could help him find Sita. This was told to Ram by another personality what they encountered in the jungles and the mountains, who told them that he should find Sugriva. And so Sugriva is the one that they had met. And actually in this junction, just to backtrack a little bit, Sita Devi was not there. Just Ram and Lakshman, because Sita Devi was already kidnapped by this powerful evil king named Ravana. That's another story that I won't get into right now, because we're just talking about friendships. Each story has many, 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 many side stories. So just Ram and Lakshman. So then Hanuman explained to Sugriva that, please don't worry, these two brothers are here, and he brought them. They just want your friendship. That is why they're here. So Sugriva is not very trusting because he has had experiences in relationships and friendships where his trust was broken. So he's very wary of people. So then there was a ceremony being held where Ram and Sugriva had to officially become friends. Nowadays in the world, we just say, you're my friend, I'm your friend. That is the extent of our commitment. We met each other and we became friends. But in the older days, the friendships had a whole ritual. So they do a fire ceremony and they take oath to one another. They make a commitment to one person to another, one heart to another heart, that we are going to remain friends and we'll always trust each other and blah, 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 blah. So this is part of the ritual they used to have. And Ram explained in this junction to Sugriva the vow that he made. He said that service is the foundational root of this friendship between the two of us. And truth and trust. So these are the qualities Ram explains in the Ramayana, the foundation of friendships. So in this instance, Sugriva also made the same promises and now they're officially friends. But in the mind of Sugriva, there is still some doubt about Ram. Because Ram had made the promise that I will stand by you in your sorrow and your grief and your good times and your bad times. And I'll fight for you and I'll stand by you. And Sugriva said the same thing. My dear Ram, you're in here in search of your wife, and I will do everything in my power to make sure I use every one of my resources to help you find your wife, your queen. And Ram promised to Sugriva that he will fight for Sugriva and get back his kingdom and get back his wife that was taken away by his twin brother. Because his twin brother, that's another story, which I won't sidetrack right now, so we can stick on the friendship path. So now, friendship is made, there is some doubts. There is doubts because it is normal to have doubts about somebody because you don't know their prowess. So Sugriva wasn't quite sure whether Ram could actually help him to kill his brother and get back the kingdom and get his wife. And so he said, maybe I should tell you another side story so you know why he has these doubts. Okay, let me tell you the side story. Another misunderstanding between two friends who are also brothers. So you can understand why he has doubts about Ram. So these two brothers, Sugriva had a brother named Bali, and they were very powerful. But Bali had a very unique quality, which is that when in fight, whoever he sees, he has the benediction that he will get the double the strength of the person that he's fighting. So that means that he is invincible, that no one can ever beat him. If you see him face to face, if he is to fight you, you lost because he has double your strength. That is a benediction that he had. And that is one of the reasons Sugriva was worried that whether Ram can fight him or not. Another reason, the doubt that he had. So Bali was so powerful, his brother was so powerful. At one time, there was this great demon, evil king, I think his name was Mayavi. Came along with all his armies. They attacked Bali, and Bali chased the whole army into the cave, and they all went hiding into a cave. And Bali chased them inside the cave, and Sugriva was with him. He chased them inside the cave, and he killed every one of those demons inside the cave. And that cave was filled with blood. That's why in India nowadays, sometimes when you go to caves, not just the sages live there. There's some other elements there also in the caves. So in this cave, all these demons were killed by Bali, and the fight was there for many, many days. And Sugriva was asked to guard the entrance of the cave to make sure that nobody comes out from another side. In case they come out, then Sugriva should attack them and kill them. But Sugriva could only hear the cries of the demons screaming and could never hear the cries of Bali. And when he saw the big, huge pool of blood coming out of the cave, then he thought, oh my God, they must have definitely killed my brother, and I better run, otherwise I will be the next one to die. So what does he do? He takes a big, huge boulder, a peak of a mountain. He takes it and he shoves it at the entrance of the cave, and he blocks the entrance so that they can never come out to get him. So he thought he had trapped them. And he literally thought that his brother had died. After he did this, he went back to the kingdom, and he called the ministers and all the citizens of the monkey kingdom, and they coronated him as the king of Kiskinda, right? So he was considered the king. Little did he know that his brother didn't die. He used his strength, and he took time, and he pushed and opened the cave, the entrance that was blocked, and he was extremely furious. And he came to his kingdom, and then he noticed that his brother was sitting on his throne in the kingdom. And he immediately raised his voice, and he says, how dare you do this? You were just waiting for this opportunity to lock me inside the cave so you could become the king. The thing with Sugriva is that that was not his intention. He just thought that his brother had died, and he wanted to make sure that those demons didn't come out to attack him. But he was not in the mood to listen. Bali was not in a mood to listen to the truth because he was so enraged. And this is what happens when you become angry. You become irrational. So he then chased Sugriva. He crowned himself as the king, even though Sugriva had taken his crown and placed it at the feet of Bali. He says, my dear brother, I'm so sorry. This is what I thought had happened. But Bali was in no mood. So Bali chased him out of his kingdom. And he ran and he ran and he ran all over the entire planet to hide from Bali. And he couldn't find shelter anywhere other than this one cottage of a sage. And the sage, the name of the sage is called Matanga, Sage Matanga. And his sage was a special place where Bali could not enter. If he entered the compound of the sage, he was protected with powerful celestial mantras. That if Bali entered that place, his head would explode into 1,000 pieces. Please give me 1 minute because my laptop is about to, the battery is about to die. I need to plug in.
What were the three bases of the friendship? You said trust, seva,
Commitment.
commitment.
Okay. See how long it takes me to plug in a charger. There we go. Okay, so where was I? I was getting lost in the Ramayana. There's so many stories in between stories. Yes, so Sugriva had taken shelter in the cottage of sage Matanga because that sage's compound was protected with special mantras that if Bali had ever entered that space, that his head would explode into 1,000 pieces. So Bali dare never enter and chase his brother. So that's where Sugriva was staying in hideout. And so then this is the story of Bali, right? That's why Sugriva has doubts about Lord Ram, the power of Bali, that he can have double the strength. Another reason where Sugriva had doubts about Ram, because he felt that Ram did not know the power of his brother. So then he told him another story. Sugriva told another story about Bali. Another story about Bali was there's another great, evil, powerful bull. His name is Dundubi. This bull was too powerful and he just wanted to fight everybody. You know, when you have power, it gets to you. You have to fight. If you look at what happens in the world today, when you have too much power, it gets to your head and then you have to fight somebody. You have to create some conflict. So this evil bull named Dundubi was extremely powerful. He was itching for a fight. So first he went to the god of ocean god, and he says, look, I want to challenge you. I want you to come out and I want to show you that I'm stronger than you and you have to fight me. The ocean god comes out and says, come on, I don't want to fight. Please, I know who you can fight. If you really want to fight someone, I can tell you who would be happy to fight you. He said, why don't you go to Himavan? Himavan is the Himalayan mountains. Why don't you go there and you pick a fight with him? Because the Himalayan mountains is very strong. So you can go and pick a fight with him. And he says, oh, good idea. So this Dundubi goes to the Himalayan mountains and he challenges the mountain. He says, I want to fight you because I want to prove you that I'm stronger than you. I'm more powerful than you. And the Himalayan mountain comes out and he says, I know you're itching for a fight, but how can I fight? My body, this Himalayan mountains is filled with all the sages doing meditation and austerities, and hanging out with them, being in their association, being in their company. I have also developed those qualities of peace and calm, and I have no desire to fight. But I know who you can fight. I heard of this great king named Bali. You should definitely go there, and he would love to give you a good fight. So this Dundubi thought, oh, nice, I have someone to fight. So he goes and he challenges Bali. And Bali, is like, come on. So he gets into a fight with Bali. Bali just picks him up by his legs, by one of his legs, and just smashes him to the ground. Powerful, powerful, evil person. He just smashes him. And he throws him away on top of the mountains. He throws him very far away, but on the trajectory that he was throwing the body of Dundubi, because Dundubi's body was heavily battered, there was blood splattered everywhere. So some of the blood spilled accidentally in the compound of this great sage Matanga. Remember, that's where Sugriva is staying. And that's when Sage Matanga, he was very furious. How dare you try to contaminate my compound, my little place of austerities and penance. So he did not even give the time to listen to Bali. Bali came, just like Bali didn't listen to Sugriva. So this sage, he got the same treatment from the sage. The sage didn't want to listen to his story. He says, no, you made a mess here. Don't ever come into my compound where I'm doing my penances and austerities, because if you come here, your head will break into 1,000 pieces. And so we see two instances in this story. What happens when we do not listen to another person? Very important. Ramayana teaches us many, many morality and ethics of friendship. One thing is that in friendships, we must always listen to another person. We should always give the time to listen to their story so we can know what the truth is, so we can have full picture. We see in the case of Bali and Sugriva, they didn't listen to each other. We are seeing here in the case of Bali and Matanga, the same scenario is played out. And this scenario applies to each and every one of our lives all the time. You'll notice one friend, you have friendships, they do something, you do something, and there is some misunderstanding, and you never take the time to listen to their side of the story and fix that relationship. That relationship is gone. So misunderstandings are a common destroyer of any friendships or any relationships. And therefore, the importance of always communicating, having a dialogue. So these are two, same lesson in two stories. And after this story, coming back to our original story of Sugriva and Ram, so Ram finally gets it. Can you imagine? Sugriva is questioning the power of Ram. And this is another important part of spiritual relationships, that just because he questioned the power and the position of Ram does not mean that Sugriva does not trust Ram. He's simply questioning because he wants to make sure that Ram can deliver what he promised. Many people in this world, we make promises that we cannot keep. And that is one of the reasons in the material world, we are very heartbroken, because people, friends, and relationships constantly make promises that they cannot keep. And we never ask them to verify those promises. Are you really sure you can keep that promise? And if you were to ask them if they could keep their promise, then it'll be considered, oh, you don't trust me? You're challenging me? Like if I were to ask Narayani Devi, are you really sure you can teach? You can teach all these children? Narayani will say, oh, really? You're questioning me? I've been a teacher. This is what I trained. I trained for this many years, and I'm a teacher, and I've been teaching this dozens of kids, and you're still challenging me? She will feel hurt. But here you're seeing that Ram, the most powerful king on the entire universe, is not offended when Sugriva doubts his prowess. So Ram asks Sugriva, please tell me, what can I do to prove to you that I can fulfill my promise to you? Sugriva said, okay, yeah, let's do a test. And again, in material friendships, you're not allowed to test, you just have to trust. But in spiritual friendships, the seva, the service, the commitment, and the trust is way deeper. And therefore, Ram is ready to be tested by a monkey king who's been chased out of his kingdom. And what is the test? He said, you see that big, huge peak of the mountain? That is the bone of that demon named Dundubi that Bali had just thrown away, cast away. I want to see if you can lift that bone up. So Ram says, sure. So Ram goes and lifts up that bone effortlessly. Then Sugriva goes, well, you know, when Dundubi was alive, there was more flesh and bones and muscles in his body, so he'd weighed more. So what you did is, it's okay. You lifted up the skeleton, it's light, but he was heavier, you know. So Ram said, okay, tell me what else. He said, well, Bali was known to be so strong that he could just pick up mountain peaks and he can toss them and throw them anywhere, and he can just uproot hundreds of trees, and he can just uproot trees effortlessly, big, big, massive trees that are, you know, hundreds of miles in radius. Ram said, sure. What else? And he said, Bali was so good in archery that he could pierce through those trees effortlessly. So Ram said, sure. So Ram pulled his bow and he pulled his arrow and he shot one arrow and it penetrated 7 trees, the most biggest, strongest, massive trees in the Himalayan mountains. He pierces all the 7 trees, one after another, and the arrow circumambulates the trees, comes back and ends up back in his quiver. You know what a quiver is? Yeah, so this is where they keep the arrow. So then Sugriva felt, oh, okay, now I accept that Ram, he made his promises in this friendship, that he's able to keep his friendship. Very interesting, right? What is spiritual friendship? You could see what happens there when you don't listen to a friend. Now you're seeing Lord Ram, who's the personification of morality and ethics, and the king who stands the tallest, the incarnation of morality and ethics, is being questioned of his prowess. And he is proving to a monkey king that he can keep his promise. He is not being offended. This is what friendship is. I know sometimes Theodora used to ask me questions, and she always says, I hope you will not be offended, but I want to ask you a question. It's really, really cute how she does it. Because she is so sensitive, she doesn't want to offend me. But in the spiritual friendships, what is the offense? You have a right to question and humbly inquire. Can you really, truly deliver what you promise as a teacher? And this is what the beauty of this spiritual relationships are. So Ram, of course, Ram, and imagine friendships are always tested. It's not that, okay, you tested once, now we're good forever. No, it's tested. So let's see in this story how the friendship is tested again. So Ram tells Sugriva, so now please go ahead and pick a fight with Bali, and I will kill Bali. So Sugriva is convinced, so he goes to the kingdom. Imagine, this guy is hiding in the cottage of a sage out of fear of his life. He gets courage from his friends. And this is what friendship does. Friendships, commitment, trust gives you courage. So he gets courage to go and attack his brother to get back his kingdom. And Bali comes out and he beats the hell out of his brother. And Ram is waiting to shoot and kill Bali, but it's so difficult for him because he can't recognize them because they are twins, they're identical twins, they look the same. So he doesn't want to kill the wrong person. So he doesn't shoot the arrows. And Sugriva gets beat up so bad, he's about to die, and he runs away, back straight into the cottage in the compound of Sage Matanga so he can be saved. And Bali immediately leaves him alone. And then next day he meets Ram and he says, Ram, what was that? You told me to go pick a fight. I believed you, I trusted you, and you just let me get beat. And this is what happens in friendships, that sometimes they say something and they may not be able to hold their end of the bargain, but that does not mean the friendship is over. Because the friendship is so deep, Ram tells him and explains to him, there's a dialogue, Ram explains to him, I'm so sorry, I didn't know which one you were because you two look the same. But this time we'll make sure that there's a foolproof plan. What is the plan? I'm going to have you wear this garland. Please wear this garland when you fight so I can recognize which one you are and which one is not you. So friendship means that even when you agree on something, there can be where genuine misunderstandings happen because you may not know everything. And Ram is playing this beautiful role even though he knows everything. Ram is all-knower, is the personification of the divine. So what happens? Please go back and have another fight. So Sugriva gets courage again, after almost losing his life, to go back into the battle. So he goes and he challenges his brother again. And this time, Bali's wife, her name is Tara. Tara, she says, Bali, something must be going on. This is another interesting story of intuition. This lady knows that Sugriva was just beat up, almost lifeless. And how can this person come back the next day and challenge you for a fight? Something greater must be going on. Otherwise, there's no way Bali would come to challenge you for another fight. Once you get beat, you know that they're superior to you. You don't go challenge them for another fight. So she was completely present. She could see what was happening. But Bali, he just was so angered. He was completely overtaken by anger. What does he do? He comes out to fight Bali. And they're having this fight. And Ram making sure that he's not facing Bali. Because remember, Bali has this special power. If he sees you, he gets double your strength. So he's almost invincible. He can defeat anybody. So Ram is hiding behind these big trees and waiting for an opportune moment. And he finally gets an opportune moment, and Ram shoots the arrow, and he enters into Bali's heart. And Bali is about to leave his body. And finally Ram shows up, and Bali pulls the arrow out, and he looks at the arrow like, who is this person? Who is this coward that, shot me from the back? He looks at the arrow, and in that arrow is the name of Ram. And when he sees the name of Ram, because he knows who Ram is, and he gets into the spiritual mood that the divine personified has come to establish the principle of Dharma. So he asked Ram, he says, Ram, why did you kill me. Why didn't you ask me for help? I could have helped you find your wife. And you shot me from the back. This is such an unethical thing to do. Then Ram explained, he says, Bali, you're a monkey, right? Vanara means someone who hasn't identified as a human or a monkey. So they're considered somewhere in between. They have an identity crisis. That's what the word Vanara or monkey means in Sanskrit. So he says, you're a monkey and I'm a Kshatriya. And as Kshatriyas, we have the right, according to the codes of conduct, Kshatriyas have the right to hunt. Warriors have the right to hunt. So I have done nothing wrong. So they had a very beautiful dialogue between Bali and Ram. And Bali immediately realized that, the person is the divine personified. What a best way to leave. So then he looks at Ram's face and he gets into a trance and he leaves this body. So the reason I wanted to tell you this story is how spiritual friendships work. The foundation of spiritual friendships, when we're committed to friendships, the deep values of service to one another and filled with trust, which is what Ram exchanged in vows with Sugriva, then these friendships are everlasting. Of course, the story goes on how this friendship is tested again and then again goes back together because there is truth, trust, commitment, and seva. So in this way, my dear friends, we should not be disappointed when in our spiritual friendships, when there is hiccups, when there is a misunderstanding, when something does not happen to satisfy our expectations. When things happen, we have to communicate and we have to know the foundation of this is commitment and trust and service to one another. And through this, we will be able to maintain eternal friendships that are never broken. When we say friends, BFF, is this BFF is the right word? Best friends forever, is that the correct word? Yeah, that's what it means. It has to have deep spiritual foundation, and those friendships will never perish. And if there is any hiccups, those are simply there to enhance the quality of friendships and relationships. Okay. Thank you so much. We may take one question if there's any questions. Yes, Kushita.
Thank you for this beautiful lesson. I'm sorry I had to be out of camera, but I was listening. It's all beautiful and we all do the work, but you know what happened? I mean, I think you actually know the story of this, my friend, soul sister, I mean, everything to me. And then with no explanation, she left, and in a very high moment of our relationship. In fact, we were in a trip and it was all kudos and butterflies because we were celebrating her 50th, and then after years of sisterhood, like vanished, no explanation, like just no explanation. There was no fight, no nothing. And then being in this work that we do, I tried to reach out and did all that, but long story short, I mean, she just disappeared. And I think I've settled in, but what do you do in those cases that, I mean, usually the separation of a friendship happens because, something happened, there was something involved, but in this particular case, I have nothing to grab on, and then she's gone.
Yes, those are very sad. Therefore, we have to check the foundation of our friendships. In this stories, we're seeing the depth of friendships is foundational to very deep spiritual qualities. And so if one person agrees, the other person also agreed to those foundations of friendships. And that's why in Vedic times, they had fire ceremonies to take oath of friendships. And nowadays here, we're just like, oh, you're my friend. I expect this from you. They expect something else from you. So it's this two persons unverbalized expectations of one another, uncommunicated. And so therefore, in spiritual friendships, when we grow together, we actually get to really know the innermost feelings and fears of each one of our comrades in our spiritual journey. And that is one of the things that we really do a lot, revealing your heart to another, them revealing their heart. So we go through this process of having deep spiritual relationships. It's so deep, it's inseparable because you know each other so well. And there, knowing the true inner self of one another is what builds deep spiritual commitment. And that is why it is so important to build spiritual relationships through revealing your mind and hearing the revelations of their deep spiritual realizations. So we just have to check the foundation of relationships. Things that we have lost, it's okay. But at least we now know that it needs deep spiritual foundation. And this is what we learned from this story of Ramayana. So we have another call. If you would like to join us, it's called The Seeker's Quest. We'll be joining at 10 in about 2 minutes. I think the link is there for you to join us. There will be Chaitanya Charan, Radha Priti, and myself, and all of your beautiful hearts. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste. Thank you. Blessings.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Does anyone need the link for the next